recording on? Hi, it's me, the floating head of the Blue Wizard from the future. I'm just popping into the beginning of this video to let you know that I left out some crucial information. So, the whole point of this video is I wanted to highlight this most recent video from Scott the Miniac called Teaching a Noob the Most Important Technique. I never brought up the name of the video at all, but before you watch this video, you should go watch that one because I reference it quite a lot. Without giving any of the future away, because I am bound by a strict magical pact not to do that, I'll just go ahead and close out the astral projection here and send you back to the video. Enjoy!
My name is Scott.
Hi, Scott.
For over 2 decades, and today I'm joined by Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul, and if I'm here, who's flying the plane?
Today I'm going to teach Paul one of the most important techniques in our hobby. Basically, every blending method you've ever heard of is so much harder if you don't understand the skill of layering. I'm going to show you and Paul today why that is. Are you ready for a life-changing experience?
I've had a few, but I think I could do with another one.
All right, sounds good. I'm going to blow your mind! We're going to paint some orcs from Paul's 40K.
Let's give it a shot. So layering is one of those techniques that I've always been curious to try, but I've always been a little scared of. And it's just because I've been using gouaches for such a long time. Pretty much since I started my mini painting journey. But you know, for that, I think it's story time. So back in the distant year of 2015, I began my hobby journey. I had some friends who wanted to play Warhammer 40K, and I said, sure, why not? I've been playing Warhammer Space Marine on my Xbox 360, and I wanted to see what the tabletop game was all about. 40K was always kind of one of those things that was in the periphery. I knew about Warhammer and Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and that was because I played the game Hero Quest when I was a kid, and still do to this day. But I said, okay, well, let's get some models, some Space Marines, get started, and see what we can do. And then the painting aspect of the hobby came into focus. I said to myself, well, sure you can buy these models painted. Nope, surely you can't. And that's kind of a magical thing about this particular hobby. It made me try something that I had never ever done before, which was painting miniatures. And I don't have any of the miniatures that I originally painted using apple barrel paints that were not meant for mini painting, but it was enough to get me hooked and made me want to know more. So here's the part of the video where I make a confession. I am a sham. I have learned nothing by myself through self-experimentation. Not that I ever claimed to, but everything that I've learned about mini painting, I learned from online videos, like Scott the Miniac. I love Scott's videos. I watch them every time he releases one, and he is one of the creators that has helped me sort of level up my hobby. I started off watching Games Workshop's video tutorials with Duncan Rhodes when he used to work there. Now he does Two Thin Coats Paint and Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy. I watched one of his videos, sat down, put it on my laptop at the time, and just followed him step by step as I edge highlighted a tactical Space Marine. And honestly, it was a great way for me to learn. For me personally, I can watch somebody do something or be told how to do something 50,000 times, but I will not get it. Until I get my hands on it and start doing it, then I'll learn how to do it. So layering is going to be the first step that I'm making in order to branch myself off, experiment with the hobby, and try to level up my game to a point where I feel like I have surpassed the old Games Workshop style of painting and moved on to a more advanced form of painting. Now, this by no means should put any judgment on you about how you want to paint your models. Feel free to paint them however you want to. That is your prerogative. You spent your money on them and you have your own supplies, so use them however you want. But for me personally, I want to take my hobby and improve it to the point where one day I could potentially win an award for it. I've never won an award for anything except spellcraft, but that's another story time. So long story short, I'm going to try layering and see if it works out. Before we start though, I want to try a little experiment. I'm going to paint one of these orcs in the way that I usually paint minis. And I'm going to paint the other one with the layering style following Scott's video. And hopefully we'll see a little bit of a difference, or maybe I'll experience something a little different while I'm actually painting the mini. I don't know, I've never done it before. Could be really hard for me, could be really easy for me. Could be that this layering technique that he goes over in the video is the key that unlocks my hidden talent. Or it could just be easier and less time consuming. These orcs have already been painted just a little bit. I put a single layer of dark green on the skin parts of the model before I'd even started painting. And the part that I didn't record was just reapplying a second layer of that very thin base coat. And then on the regular model, the one that I did in my regular style, all I did was add a wash of contrast orc flesh, which is something I typically do when I'm painting my orc models. And I have painted quite a few. I'll show them off one day. You've probably seen them in a couple of my shorts, but I'll show them off more. I have a whole army of orcs that are primed and almost ready to go. I just need to paint them. A lot of them are vehicles, so that's going to take a little while. So let's get painting. All right, so you've kind of caught me midway through of doing Scott's process here because for some strange reason, I didn't check to see whether or not I was actually recording when I started to paint. But basically, what I've been doing is I am following the musculature with this paint and just trying to go through, and I'm covering up 90% of the model with this midtone. And I do like this midtone. I love War Boss green. So yeah, just because I wasn't recording it, and now I am. These are the three colors we're going to use. We're using Gua Flesh for the base tone. We're using War Boss Green for our mid-tone. And we're using Skarsnik Green as our highlight. So these are our three colors that we're working with. That's the classic GW Orc trifecta. So we're doing Scott's layering process right now. And I'm following along. I'm trying to cover 90% of this model with this midtone. And I am trying I'm trying to leave some of the shadow here. Shadows that I've already painted on using the darker paints. And this is going okay, I think. Without any sort of guru to help me and tell me. It looks okay. That's the top of the arm done. And just the way that this model is like constructed, is posed, I guess is the accurate word. That we would kind of have to do top and bottom of arm, but the light comes from the same place, so as long as we keep that consistent, I think we're okay. All right, so we've done the first layer on the one for Scott's process, and I gotta say, I'm really liking the way it looks so far. I think I'm doing it correctly. Again, it's impossible for me to know without somebody to tell me whether or not it's correct, but it looks good, and I like it so far, and I don't think I'm blowing out too many of those details that we kind of want to keep in here. We did the base coat of the Wa flesh already on this guy. And then we went through and we've done the midtones with the War Boss green. So that has been our first layer of orc flesh for this particular model on the process. Now, the one I am painting with my typical process, we have started with the same base coat layer of Wa flesh that we did on both of them. That was both the same. The only thing that we've done different on this one is we added a wash after that of orc flesh. Now I do that on all my usual orc models. I like to get the deep dark recesses in there. And then in my typical process, what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll take my base coat and I will add a thin down layer onto the top just to bring that regular color back. This is not by any means an effective or efficient method of painting. This is just what I usually do. With Scott saying, like, you know, follow the musculature and stuff like that, and like, you know, make sure you don't rake your brush across the model. I tend to do that anyway, just because I added all that wash and I don't really want to get rid of it. So I want to make sure that the wash stays in the deepest parts of my model. So I guess I tended to do the same thing without even really thinking about it. It's just that's going to be a much deeper, darker color than it would be if it was just the base coat. And right now, while I'm doing this, the layering of going back over with my base coat, I'm feeling like this is just an extra step, you know? Like, the layering model already has the first, like, lighter, highlighted layer on it. It's already got one. This guy, I have to go back and I reapply the base coat, and that feels like an extra step, and I don't know if I like that anymore. So we're going to do the same thing we did on the other one. This is what I usually do, and I go with my first base coat layer. Now, sometimes on other models, I will build it up and I will blend two paints. But on a model like this is what I would normally do. I would just go ahead and I would put the base coat on. Again, I want to keep the wash. I'm not really slapdash with it. I want to keep the wash that I put on there. I want it to still be there. I'm having a little trouble here because there's a lot of the, there's like a scar or something on his arm. I'm just trying to highlight that without getting rid of it. So this is what I would normally do. So I'm seeing a lot of similarities between these two, between my process and his already, but mine just feels like it has extra steps. I love how much texture is on these newer orc models, especially when it comes to like the musculature. You could really see that they tried to build out a lot of that like detail work in there. It's really cool. And it's a great texture to paint. Okay, so not a whole lot of neck on this guy, but I basically do the same thing that I was doing earlier, which is try to keep my washes and not like, you know, flood the model with the brighter color, but I am gonna go back over some of these spots that the paint looks a little thin on. I'm just now realizing that, I don't know if you probably can't see it on the camera because it's so small, so I could barely see it. The trigger finger on his gun, I completely neglected. So I'm just gonna add a little highlight to that right now. That's about all you can see of the finger, so it's about all the highlight it's gonna get. So that's the first layer done. And let's compare, even though, I mean, like, you know, we're not done by any stretches, but let's go ahead and compare. So again, the one on the left here, my left, this is the one that I'm using Scott's technique. The one on the right, my right here is my technique. And so far they look pretty similar. I think, honestly, I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but the one on the left, the one with Scott's technique, seems to be just as good. And I want to say some of the details are just a little bit crisper, but I don't know if that's just my own confirmation bias or what. I think I might go back over this one with a little bit more paint, just because I feel like since I hit the other one with a second layer of paint, this one might need one too, because maybe my paint was just a little too thin. Okay. All right, so we join you back to our mini painting already in progress, and this I went through and I neatened up the midtones layer, and I think that it looks pretty damn good. I'm just looking at it and I'm just following along with Scott's advice, and I covered 90% of that model. There's about 10% of that first base coat that's still there. So next step would be to start with our first highlight. And for our highlight, we're going to be mixing the War Boss green and the Skarsnik green. And yeah. Now, we don't want to go directly into Skarsnik green, like the video said, because we don't want to go too starkly into that highlight. So we kind of want to slowly build up the color. We just want to build up the color just a tiny bit to increase the highlight. Now this is, again, something I normally do on my models, is I blend the highlights with my previous layers. So this, again, will be pretty similar, but we're doing with Scott's technique here, we're just going to hit the highlighted areas. And we're only going to hit the parts where the light is going to hit. I don't want to cover up too much of my midturn. This color is very similar, I think, to my previous one. It may be a little too similar. Probably should have gone a little brighter, but that's fine. We'll go through a second time again and we'll brighten it up even more. But that'll just be a slower blend. So we're not worried. We're not worried, he said to himself, reassuring himself. It looks like I got a little bit of paint on the inside of that finger. So I want to grab that before it dries. I'm just gonna get it. I'm gonna get it out of there. That's not really a Scott technique. That's a Chuck technique. That's me. I'm Chuck, the Blue Wizard. I mentioned it before. I'm kind of fortunate with these ones. I chose these just because they're very similar to one another, and also they only had they were very unpainted when I got them. I don't have a lot of Orks that are completely unpainted that are similar. So I wanted to use these ones as my test case because they almost look like they could be twins. And I got lucky with these ones because they don't have the face. Faces, details, and stuff like that. I could do a different video on that to try this technique out. But right now I just wanted to try with the arms and the neck muscles. And that layer, it added a little something. It did not go as hard as I think it could have. So we'll try to go a little harder with the Scarsnet green here. Added a little bit more of that lighter green. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more of a, there we go. That's a little bit more of a starker contrast. That's what we're looking for. And it might be due to that first layer that I put out there, but we'll never know now, will we? So that is the first highlight done. And I gotta say, that looks pretty nice, I think. Let me just hit that little spot right there, because that's definitely some light gonna be hitting that. I ruined it. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right. So there we go. I think that highlight layer, once I got the color that I wanted up there, I think that this actually looks pretty darn good. The veins on the hands proving to be just a little bit of a nuisance. Maybe we'll try to hit them with the highest of highlights, but yeah, all in all, this looks pretty darn good. Let's go ahead and move on to my regular model, or my regular style. And again, I would do the same thing that I did for the other model, is I would blend my midtone with my first highlight. And then I'm just gonna hit all the layers that the light would hit. And try not to cover up too much of what I already have on there. So this is my typical style, and as you can see, it's not really that different from Scott's style, but I think that I'm coming around to the layering because it was just a little bit less work, and it still looks fantastic. Not that I was really skeptical about layering to begin with. I noticed a spot I missed. Not that I was really skeptical about layering. It was just kind of intimidating to me, I think, because I have used washes for so long that I didn't really think to myself, I was like, oh, well, how am I going to get the shadows that I need without using washes? That seems like madness. Reluctance to try new things. And I think we all get kind of set in our ways when it comes to some things. But this is my normal style, and it looks pretty darn good. It's maybe a little darker on the recesses than Scott's, and I think that I prefer this style a little bit more. I don't know. We'll finish it up. We've got one more highlight to do. I think we're only gonna bring it up one more level. And then we'll call it on that one. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pivot slightly, because I wanna go up one more level. I don't want it to be too bright, but I also don't want it to be too dull. So we're going to mix a little bit of ice yellow into the Scarsnet green. This is just me taking it audible, so I need a little bit more of a brighter color, and I don't think that I'm getting it with the paints that I currently have. And we're not going to use too much of this color. This is our brightest highlight. We're just going to go for the places where light is the brightest. And I also think that using the bright yellow is going to be, or the yellow's got a little bit of warmness to it that I think that this could definitely use. And I'm going to try to think about this like what Scott said when he was think about how the light's hitting it, and think of it as not like a bunch of different segments, but as one bright tube, or there's one tube. So I'm gonna try to do that. And think about like, okay, so light's coming down from above. Where are my highlights gonna hit? So obviously they're gonna hit this shoulder, but that shoulder's clothed right now. So when I will go through and I paint the clothing, obviously I would paint the lighting to match. But we don't, so that means we don't need to go too wild towards the more bottom facing parts of the model. And again, I really don't know if I'm doing this correctly. I can't emphasize that enough. This is me trying to piece out from a video. But that's what I've been doing my entire mini painting career. When I started playing Warhammer 40K, I wanted my things on the table to look good. I told myself that I could be the worst 40K player in the world, but if my painting looked good, then I would feel accomplished. Because in the end, when it comes down to the game, it's just a game. But with the models, I really found my joy in painting them. But there's our last highlight. And I gotta say, it looks really freaking good. I'm really impressed by how well this technique has come out. And I don't even know like if I'm doing it right, but it looks good. And that's all that matters to me right now. So now we'll go back to doing my regular style, which I'll switch my brain into that, which is going to be, again, just hitting the tippy-toppiest part of the model. We're not putting too much of this color on there, but I definitely think that my typical style, I tend to put more of this color on, just because I tend to think like, okay, let's get the highest of the highlight on there, and I will generally ignore the bottom of the model at this point as well. Like, I mean, like the downwards facing, definitely don't like go down there with this color and like go too crazy. But I will definitely go through and like hit the hand bones here. All right, so let's compare. Again, the one on the right is in my typical style. Let's just get this arm over here. Is in my typical style. And the one on the left is in Scott's layering style. And the biggest difference between these two, and I'll reiterate it again, is that on the one on my left, I used absolutely no washes. No washes at all. Nothing on there. And as you can see, there's still a lot of detail. And what I'm seeing the most as a difference on these two models, and I don't know how well it's showing up on camera, but the biggest difference between them is that the one on the left, the layering, the blending of the darkest layer with the brightest layer is a lot more subtle. The one on the right is definitely a starker contrast, and I didn't do this on purpose or anything. It's definitely a starker contrast on the, specifically if you look at like the inside of the muscle here, where my finger's pointing to. This model right here, it's much darker than this one here. And that's definitely because of the wash. So I don't think that there's necessarily too much of a big difference between my styles, but I gotta say, the layering style from that I kind of cribbed from Scott here is definitely less work in the long run, and it looks just as good. And I think that, yeah, I think I might be a convert, and I might just be going with this style from now on, and I'll probably paint the rest of this model in that style. So here they are, all done, finished product. And I gotta say, Gas Mask Jones here, who I painted in my typical style, he doesn't really look too much different than the one that I painted using Scott's style. And it's honestly, I think, telling to me that this was a little bit more effort, just for me personally, just because you had to apply the wash and everything like that, than just doing the layering style that Scott was showing off. And I gotta say, I'm a big fan of this. And it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. So I was pleasantly surprised by how it came out. And I think it looks really good. It's hard to tell on the camera, and I'll throw in some interspersal pictures and stuff like that of these guys as I'm talking about them. But the arm on Gas Mask Jones here, as I've started calling him, is a little bit darker in the recesses than this one here. And honestly, I prefer the less dark recesses. And it looks more natural. And the muscle definition on these orcs is fantastic, especially for detail work like this. So I'm a fan. So before we close out the video, I just want to say that I was starting to think to myself, why am I doing a YouTube channel? I'm not the best painter in the world. I'm not the most interesting human in the world. I'm just a wizard sitting in front of a camera, asking a stranger on the internet to subscribe to his channel and support him on Patreon. I think that one of the things that I want to do with this video series is to branch myself out, to try new techniques that I have never tried before in order to improve myself as a miniature painter. And I think that this was a perfect opportunity for me to do that. Scott released a video, I watched the video, I got inspired. All apologies to Scott the Miniac for using his video as fodder for me to make a video. It's inspired me even more. I need to branch out and try different techniques that I have never tried before. And to that end, the next technique I'm going to try is one that I have been scared of since I have seen it on the internet. And that is non-metallic metals. Thanks for subscribing to the channel, and be sure to check out my Patreon. $5 a month will get you everything that you could possibly get on my Patreon, which right now, honestly, is not a lot, but it helps support the channel and help me keep making these videos as well. And a special thank you to my patrons, Travis and Rachel. You are two diamonds in the rough, and you're beautiful human beings, and I both know you personally, and that makes it even better that you both support me, and I love you, love you, love you both. You too can get all of these positive affirmations if you subscribe to my Patreon. I also may, if we start to get plenty of people subscribing, have a little giveaway coming soon. I have showed off this Khorne Slaughter Priest on my shorts, and yeah, once we hit a solid number of patrons, I'll give them away. So maybe that'll incentivize you. If not, that's perfectly fine too. Just subscribe to the channel, comment below, and hey, share the video with somebody. You know somebody who likes hobbying? Do you know somebody who wants to branch themselves out and try different hobby techniques and maybe could be inspired by my videos too? Send this their way. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear what mini painting techniques scare you in the comments below. I'll see you next time for more hobby or gaming goodness.